Superman, baby. Superman is not a fan of bullies, and we see that in Superman 2. You guys ready to discuss Superman 2?
Am I ever?
Yeah.
All right. So, Adam, you said you had seen this movie in theaters.
I very clearly remember I must have been 3.5 years old, right? This is 1980 this came out, or 81?
80.
March of 80, I believe.
So I remember being driven from Long Island to New York City, meeting up with my dad who worked in the city, going to the theater. I remember a big, stand up or pop up outside the theater. It felt more majestic because this is pre-multiplexes. It was a big deal. And I don't even remember watching the movie as much as I remember that, but I do know I've seen Superman 2 almost more than any other film in my life. It was always on growing up as a kid. And you're much less discerning as a kid, I think. A movie is either amazing or boring. And this was a movie I never got sick of. It was Superman versus supervillains, and that's all I needed.
Yeah, buddy.
Johnny, do you remember your first time with Superman 2?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was going to ask Adam, how old were you? About 3.5 going to the theater?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Wow. I must have had a boring childhood. I don't remember anything before like 4.5.
It's one of my first memories that I can remember. I mean, it honestly is like a first memory. I can't remember anything really before that, but I mean, I've always loved these kind of characters, and like that had a huge impact on me. Plus the big deal of it, like my mom driving into the city was not something she would do a lot. If you've ever driven in Manhattan, it is terrifying.
Yeah.
And it was just a huge deal. And like Superman 2, there was just a lot of majesty about it, so it stuck with me.
There you go. I actually don't have an early Superman 2 memory. I have one from Superman 3, but maybe I should save it and come back on when you guys do Superman 3.
Come back on.
But Mikey, do you want to give...
You did just rewatch Superman 2. Did you have was there an initial reaction? Was it better than you think you remembered it?
Considering everything that it took to get the film out, and it took a couple of years, and you had Richard Donner not getting along with Spengler, and then Donner's like, I'm out, and then Hackman says, well, then I'm out, so you have to do ADR, you have to get a stunt double, you have to have basically a new director put in 60% of the film after Donner leaves. It's kind of a miracle it even got released. With that said, I think it definitely has some holes, but I'd like to hear you guys talk about that before I throw out my little spiel.
Mikey, I know we were on similar pages last week about Superman the movie.
Superman 2, for some reason, I do remember, like Adam, I remember it better than I remember the first one when I was a kid. Because as a kid, it was like so colorful. I don't say colorful, but like the villains were so much bigger. It wasn't just Lex Luthor it was like super villains. So as a kid, you're like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember especially as a kid, I grew up in Buffalo, New York, which is right near Niagara Falls. So that whole Niagara Falls sequence just was like, oh my God, I know that. I know where they are right now.
You grew up where?
Buffalo, New York. That's where I'm from.
When?
I grew up in Florida, but I was born in New York. Yeah, Buffalo, New York, upstate New York. It's right on the border of Canada.
When did you move to Florida?
I was 6.
You guys all thought he was from Florida, right?
I mean, I lived in Florida majority of my life, but I was born in New York. I'm upstate New York.
Adam, have you ever known that Mike was from New York?
I did not know that he was.
What? You've never said that before.
Yeah, and it's funny when people talk to me, they're like, "Are you from upstate?" Because your voice sounds like you're from upstate. I was like, "Yeah, I'm not from Florida."
Mikey,
well, we thought upstate Florida, maybe.
No, please don't put me in that area.
Wow.
No, I'm not a Florida native, my friends. I was not born in there.
All right, continue, Mikey.
Yeah, but and as you get older and you hear all the drama and you watch it over and over again, and you're just like, wow, this movie's really not good at all. This movie completely disregards Superman. We talk about moving the Earth back in Superman the movie. In this one, he's got a cellophane S he's throwing off his chest. He's making holograms of himself. Just completely disregards the character. And everyone that, you bring this up, like, well, that wasn't Richard Donner. That was Lester. He came in and he did that. Whatever happens. My big sticking point with this movie, and again, I do enjoy it for the charm, is and I use this all the time against people that say that Cavill and Zack Snyder didn't understand Superman. And I'm going to use a very good point like I did in Superman the movie. Superman and Christopher Reeve and Superman Henry Cavill deal with bullies in both of their movies in very different ways. Superman takes a man, Clark Kent crushes his fist into dust. This man that was bullying him, and makes a joke about it and puts him on his thing and sends him down. He's like, I'll take this to go. That's fine. He broke this man's hand and probably never used his hand again.
And he destroyed the pinball machine or whatever.
Right. Well, that's property damage. But this man's hand was crushed.
I felt bad for the restaurant owner though. He just fixed the place up.
But people,
wait a second. Doesn't he crush Zod's hand? Doesn't the guy just punch him?
Yeah, because Zod crushes him, and that's when he realizes the power was turned. But that's Zod. He deserved it. This is
right. Doesn't the bully just punch him and break his hand on his chest?
Okay, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't squeeze his hand. I think that is an important distinction.
Okay. Very good. Fair point.
Yeah, he crushes Zod's hand to dust, and Zod deserves every inch of that.
Okay, fair enough. And so the guy breaks his fist on Superman and does whatever he does.
He bruises some knuckles, Mikey.
Okay, fair enough. But then
he does put him on the counter and slide him down.
And throws him into the
well-deserved.
He's physically assaulting the man. Whereas Clark Kent and Superman and Zack Snyder and Cavill dealt with a bully, and he didn't physically lay a hand on him. So, and I don't want to say this is better than that, but for people to say that Cavill and Snyder didn't understand Clark Kent is completely false, because they did. He didn't physically assault a man or use what he had to hurt someone, and the Chris Reeve version did it. So it's like, I got to go with that.
Good point.
But I thank you, Adam, for correcting. You're right, because I was confusing the two. But again, it's like the powers at the end. It's like, oh, so now the red lights, his powers, and you're just like, what's going on here?
Again, as a kid, this is granted, but as a kid, when you have no idea about lore, and some of these sequences. Sorry, that's the first movie I'm thinking of. There's a whole underground sequence where Lex Luthor attacks him that was put in later. But some of those powers, as a kid, you're just like, wow, awesome.
Right.
It's only later that you crave canon and you crave, like, what are the rules of the world? Because then you realize if he can turn the earth back, then all of a sudden his other powers don't matter. It's like, if you can just do everything, then flying isn't that impressive.
No, we're on the same page on that.
I watched this for what I think was the first time, because I don't remember I thought I had previously watched it, but I must have done what Ryan did, where he thought he had watched the first one. He'd only watched the second. I must have only watched the first and not the second. Mike, I think I sent you a text last night after I watched it that said, wow, Christopher Reeve is amazing.
Sure. He's amazing in all four of them.
Superman 2, not so much. This movie was rough for me.
Let me tell you this, Adam, Roxy, to go for your point, and I've said this, even though 3 and 4 are terrible movies, Chris Reeve is still phenomenal in them.
Yeah, he is so good. His eyes, his subtle, he's so endearing.
In Niagara Falls, where he burns his hand, and she's like, let me see. He's like, no. And she realizes that he's Superman, and then he makes the transition from like, I've got to tell her, and he turns around, and his body just comes up. It's like, that's brilliant to me as a performer.
Yeah.
Like, he embodied, so I can't fault the movie, because I'm not attacking Chris Reeve's performance. It's the film itself.
Johnny, it makes sense, the things that you were saying about what happened going into the film, because it just gets so convoluted at times.
Oh man.
And the villains, I mean, it's so rough. And Zod is in Much Ado About Nothing, or so, I mean, like, he is in some Shakespearean production of some very prestigious play.
But I love that.
I love it too.
I love it. I think he's so good in it.
It's what it is. But then with the world around it, like, I don't know whether I'm supposed to laugh at him and his Goonies. I don't know why is Lex so stupid? Why is Lex so dumb in this movie?
He's a buffoon.
He
became the Otis of this movie.
Yeah, he did. It just was tough. And as opposed to Superman 1, which I felt like there were plot holes and flaws, like the turning back of time with the Earth. For this one, I felt like it was 70% that and 30% shining moments. I still do really like Lois Lane in these two movies so far, though. It is definitely a better iteration. What, Johnny, you're not into her?
Well, number one, add to your point about General Zod, I'd love to have a conversation with the costume designer, because if they don't admit they were influenced by the Bee Gees, they're lying, because that was flat out Bee Gees gear right there. Secondly, You know, it's funny. I wanted to hear all your opinions first because all three of you are way more of an expert level at DC canon and lore than I am. I'm actually shocked. I thought you guys were all going to say this movie was amazing. I watched it and I was like, yo, this, and I'm not talking about the old school green screen and the special effects. I accept the fact it was almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But boy, there were a lot of holes. I will agree, Christopher Reeve, timeless. He's amazing. I mean, he stole 2 hot dogs. We don't even care. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, what is that? What was that?
I don't know. He just took 2 hot dogs.
I know.
But Lois Lane, I'll be honest, and God rest Margot Kidder, I found Lois Lane horribly unlikable in Superman 2.
See, I'm kind of with Johnny. I've never been a Margot Kidder fan. There's always just been something about her that just, I don't know.
Oh, I dig her so much.
I know you do, Rox. And
like,
there's just something about her I don't dig.
I like the carelessness, but also this is what I do. I am strapping myself underneath this elevator going up to the Eiffel Tower. That's who I am. I'll figure it out later. I'm jumping into this water. Like, I love the act first, think second aspect of her. And I really feel like she wasn't the same damsel in distress that we have ended up getting in later years with Lois Lane. Even though she needs to be rescued often, I just feel like she's ballsy as hell.
Yeah.
Which I love. And I also wanted to get to some things in the chat, guys, because we've got great conversation going on in here. A couple super chats coming in from Dan V900, which we really appreciate. He says, I watched the Donner cut in the last week, and it's less campy than the Lester cut. Now there are hypocrites since he's not Superman much in that movie. And just like The Dark Knight Rises, it's not great. So which one did I see? The theatrical one? I saw the Lester cut.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you guys have all seen the Donner cut also?
Yeah.
So I guess I probably have never seen that. What are the big differences?
It doesn't really hold together. I can't, Mike, you have those, right?
I bought them when they did the Superman 2 Returns box set. It was like all of them. It's weird, Roxy. They put in a lot of Jor-El stuff with Marlon Brando. But it's weird. It's the CGI it's not CGI, so it's this weird kind of greenish put in place. It doesn't look finished. I don't remember too much about it. It just was very pasted together. It didn't feel like the ultimate cut Batman v Superman, where it's like it was seamless. This feels like, oh, here's Donner's stuff that we inserted in. And they never said that it was going to be a finished film. This was just his work print. I don't think Donner actually worked on it, the cut. I don't think he sat down and
worked on that film, worked with Donner to put it together.
Yeah, I don't think it's not great.
The original ending of Superman 2 going to be Lois dying as opposed to the magical kiss that erased her mind?
Oh, we forgot about that. That's right, the kiss.
Yeah.
What?
Oh God Almighty!
Didn't like that.
Yeah, that was brutal. That was brutal. But what was
Johnny, I don't think they could have killed her. I don't think they could have killed her because we already established that Superman could turn back the world and bring anyone back to life.
But that's kind of what I was thinking about the whole movie. Now that we've established that when she jumps in the water or anything happens, I'm like, there's no stakes here because if something happens to her, he's just going to turn back time. Dan V900 also says, remember that Superman the movie had a different ending as a cliffhanger, and going back in time was supposed to be the end of 2.
Right.
Lois shoots blanks instead of burning hand in Lester's cut.
Right.
Well, there you go.
Didn't know any of that.
Didn't know any of that,
also,
my friend.
shout out to Larry Lease, who said Superman 2 is great, way better than Tom Brady. I don't want to give you a shout out, Larry Lease, but you did give a super chat, so I will.
Yeah.
And he also reminds everybody to hit the like button in here. So we appreciate that too, Larry. Pimp out our stream. Hit that like button. 150 people watching live right now. Let's get those likes going. Adam, what were you saying?
I just wanted to say, I know I wasn't on the talk last week where you talked about Superman 1, but, you know, people always go back to Donner discovering the verisimilitude, making it serious, right? So this movie starts out, you know, totally cutting out Brando, but still giving us the repeat of that sequence where the 3 villains are sent in the Phantom Zone. I also wanted to point out that as a child, I always thought the line, because of his English accent, I will come for you, Jor-El, and someday your ass. I always thought he was saying your ass as a kid. So I thought that was a
I'm coming for your ass, Jor-El.
And I thought that was weird.
But then we also get the classic. Sorry, go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, like, the whole beginning of the first movie is so serious, and I get choked up with the father just every time I even think about it. And it just lays the groundwork for a world. And this movie jumps you in way campier. And as an adult, I can realize how much more poorly made of a film it is.
And I'll say this because one, it's got one of my favorite Chris Reeve lines of all time. It's like, "Excuse me, General, would you care to step outside?"
Yes.
It's brilliant. Brilliant. But then on the other hand, like I see something like Batman, which came out 9 years later than, 11 years later. And they use what I can't stand about the Superman movies is Metropolis. They didn't do anything to make Metropolis. It is New York City.
Straight up.
And I hate that. The fact that Gotham and Anton Furst, who designed Burton's, and they built $1 million Gotham City, speaks volumes of what they thought about the comic book. Like, I can't watch Superman. I'm like, this is, I mean, they have the Statue of Liberty in one scene, for God's sakes. It's like,
I know
they don't do anything different. So it doesn't work for me like that.
And also, this is me being a continuity snob, but when Lois flies with him to the Fortress of Solitude, she brings a little purse. How does she have 9 outfit changes?
He goes and gets
you
them.
know what we can fit in our purses, Johnny? We are
Wait.
magic. Here's
All right.
Roxy,
Yes.
I'm just thinking through the movie in my head. How did that New York fight work for you? I won't even say Metropolis fight because, like Mikey, I've always thought of it as New York too. But again, because I grew up there, I kind of didn't mind that. But that fight, that whole part where he comes back, that's one of my favorite sequences in all of movie.
Really? No, it didn't work as well for me when we throw him into the billboard and the whole thing. I mean,
and the guy's ice cream cone with the.
I think that they that really struggles from being a pre-CGI, like there was just so many strange tech things in that. But I do hear you, and I know we have to get out of here. So I do want to get final thoughts from you guys. Johnny, anything else? Any last minute Superman 2 thoughts?
Oh, no, I think we covered it well. I'm excited for Superman 3 because who doesn't love Richard Pryor?
No,
okay,
you're
but
not.
this is what we decided for next
Superman
week. Ryan, maybe you can do some quick Googling for us, but I believe the one next on our list, which is going to make Mike so happy.
I know it is. It is. You're right.
That he wants to watch it would be Swamp Thing.
It is. It's 82. It is
Swamp
next.
Thing!
Okay, so Swamp Thing is next.
By good old Wes Craven.
I cannot wait. For this.
It was 1982.
Adam, hopefully we get you for next week. Johnny, obviously we'd love to have you too.
I know what you're doing, Adam.
What?
I know what he is doing. He's growing his arm back, like in Swamp Thing. He's holding up to the sunlight, growing his arm back.
All right.
Come on, it's Swamp Thing.
Okay. Well, Adam is Swamp Thing. That's the whole point.
That he is.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.